My name is Michael Torres, a 40-year-old accountant from New York City, and I never thought I'd end up in a Manhattan courtroom, fighting for a fortune I didn't chase. But there I was in the federal courthouse, accused by my late boss's wife and children of blackmailing him into leaving me his $20 million estate. They claimed I'd exploited his cancer-weakened state to steal what was theirs. The truth? I was the whistleblower who exposed his company's fraud years ago, losing my job and reputation in the process. He saw my integrity and rewarded it, but his family wanted to erase that. What happened in that courtroom changed everything. If you're reading this, I hope you'll stay with me. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to stand up for doing the right thing even when it cost you? Let's go back to where this started. I was 28 when I started working for Edward Langston, a Wall Street tycoon whose investment firm Langston Capital managed billions. I was a junior accountant fresh from NYU, crunching numbers in a glass tower in Midtown. Edward was charismatic, larger than life, the kind of man who commanded boardrooms and charmed investors. His wife, Victoria, was a socialite who threw galas at their Park Avenue penthouse. Their kids, Olivia and Nathan, were trust fund darlings. Olivia, a fashion influencer, and Nathan, a wannabe hedge fund manager. I was just a kid from Queens, thrilled to be in their world. By 2015, I noticed discrepancies in Langston Capital's books. Millions funneled to offshore accounts, fake transactions masking losses. I reported it to my supervisor, who brushed me off. So I dug deeper, compiling evidence late at night, my stomach knotted with fear. I wasn't a hero, I just couldn't look the other way. In 2016 I blew the whistle, sending my findings to the SEC. The fallout was swift. The firm collapsed, Edward was fined millions, and I was fired. The industry blackballed me. Colleagues called me a traitor. The New York Post ran a story. Accountant betrays Wall Street giant. Online comments branded me a snitch, a nobody who ruined lives. I spent years rebuilding. I took low-paying bookkeeping jobs, lived in a cramped Astoria apartment, and avoided Wall Street. My parents, immigrants from Puerto Rico, were proud but worried. "You did right, Mijo," Dad said, "but right doesn't always pay." I believed that until Edward reached out in 2023. He'd been diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer and wanted to meet. I was wary, expecting anger, but agreed. We met at his Hamptons estate, just the two of us. He looked frail, his once vibrant frame hollowed by chemo, but his eyes were sharp. "Michael," he said, "you were right back then. I was too proud to see it. You saved investors from bigger losses." I was stunned. He apologized, something I never expected. Over the next year we met weekly, coffee in Central Park, dinners at his favorite diner. He talked about his regrets, his family's distance. Victoria was busy with her social calendar. Olivia and Nathan only called for money. I listened, shared stories of my own struggles, and we built a quiet friendship. I never asked for anything. I just valued his trust. Edward died in April 2025. I was at his bedside in Mount Sinai, reading him articles about the Mets, his favorite team. Victoria and the kids showed up once in his final weeks, arguing about his estate before he'd even passed. At the funeral, Victoria ignored me and Nathan glared like I was trespassing. I didn't expect to be part of Edward's will. I figured he'd leave everything to his family despite their absence. A week later, Edward's attorney, Rachel Cohen, called me to her office in the Flatiron district. I sat across from her, expecting a condolence or maybe a keepsake. "Michael," she said, "Edward left you his entire estate, properties, investments, accounts totaling $20 million. I stared, my heart pounding. She read from the will. Asterisk, to Michael Torres, who showed integrity when I had none, I leave my estate. He reminded me what matters. Asterisk at the bottom, in Edward's shaky handwriting, was a note. Asterisk, you gave me redemption, Michael. This is yours. Asterisk. I couldn't speak. Why me? I managed. Rachel smiled faintly. He said you were the son he wished he'd had. Victoria and the kids were in the room, their faces pale with shock. Olivia slammed her hand on the table. This is insane. He's a nobody. Nathan stood, his voice cold. You won't get away with this. They stormed out and I knew trouble was coming. 2 days later, Victoria called. "Drop this, Michael," she said, her voice sharp. "You don't belong in our world. Give us what's ours or we'll bury you." I tried to explain, Edward's choice, not mine, but she hung up. A week later, a process server handed me a lawsuit at my office. Victoria, Olivia, and Nathan were suing, claiming I'd blackmailed Edward into changing his will while he was too sick to resist. The 40-page complaint accused me of fraud, coercion, and exploiting a dying man. They demanded the will be voided, splitting the estate among them. I sat in my apartment reading the lies, my hands shaking. The Wall Street Journal ran a story. Whistleblower accused of stealing tycoon's fortune. Comments called me a predator, a con artist. Strangers who'd never met me decided I was guilty. But I wasn't the naive kid from 2016. I'd fought too hard to let them rewrite my story. I hired Lisa Martinez, a probate attorney with a reputation for taking on powerful families. We met in her cluttered Brooklyn office, surrounded by legal books and empty coffee cups. "This is a smear campaign," Lisa said, scanning the complaint. "They're using your whistleblower past to paint you as a schemer. But Edward's will is solid." She showed me his medical records, confirming he was lucid when he revised it a year ago. A neurologist's report noted full cognitive capacity. Then she pulled out a USB drive. Edward left a voicemail for Rachel explaining his decision. "Want to hear it?" My throat tightened. "Yes." Lisa played the file. Edward's voice, weak but clear, filled the room. "Rachel, it's Edward. I'm giving everything to Michael. He blew the whistle when no one else would. He's been here not for money but for me. Victoria and the kids, they only want my wealth. Make this stick." Tears pricked my eyes. Lisa nodded. "This is our ace. We'll use it at the right moment." The trial began on a crisp October morning in 2025. I stood outside the federal courthouse, cameras flashing. Reporters shouted, "Michael, did you blackmail Langston?" Lisa guided me through the crowd. "Don't engage," she whispered. "Let the evidence talk." Inside, the courtroom was packed. Wall Street insiders, reporters, even former colleagues who'd shunned me. Victoria sat at the plaintiff's table, her face composed, wearing a tailored black dress. Olivia and Nathan flanked her, their expressions cold. Their attorney, Charles Reed, was a Wall Street veteran with a commanding presence. Judge Daniel Kim, a no-nonsense man in his 60s, entered. "Let's proceed," he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. Reed stood, his tone smooth. "Your Honor, my clients Victoria, Olivia, and Nathan Langston are here to right a wrong. Edward Langston was a sick man vulnerable to blackmail. Michael Torres, a disgraced whistleblower, coerced him into signing a will that disinherited his family. He held up emails claiming they were from me to Edward. I know things you wouldn't want out. Change the will or I'll talk." My stomach twisted. The emails were fake, but they looked real enough to fool a jury. Judge Kim studied them. "Are these authenticated?" "We're working on it," Reed said. "But they show Torres's intent." Victoria took the stand, her voice trembling with practiced grief. "Michael destroyed Edward's company," she said. "Then he wormed his way back in when Edward was dying, threatening to ruin us further. We loved Edward, but Michael kept him from us." The gallery murmured, some nodding. I felt their eyes, judging, doubting. Lisa stood. "Your Honor, those emails are forgeries. We have a digital forensics expert ready to testify." She held up phone records. "These show Michael met Edward 62 times in his final year. Personal visits, no financial requests. Victoria contacted him 9 times, Olivia 4, Nathan 3, all tied to money." Judge Kim nodded. "I'll review these." I stood, my voice steady. "Your Honor, I didn't blackmail Edward. I visited him because he was my friend, because he trusted me. His family wasn't there." Olivia's face reddened. "You're a liar," she snapped. "Ms. Langston," Judge Kim warned, "control yourself." The first day ended with the courtroom buzzing. That night Nathan called. "Drop this, Michael," he said, his voice cold. "Split the money or we'll make sure everyone knows you're a fraud. We have more dirt." "You've already tried that," I said, hanging up, my hands shaking. The next morning Lisa was ready. Your Honor, she said, we have a voicemail from Edward Langston, recorded a year before his death. Reed objected, claiming it could be a deep fake, but Lisa submitted forensic analysis proving its authenticity. Judge Kim allowed it. Lisa played the file. Edward's voice filled the room. Asterisk, Michael's been here. Victoria and the kids, they only want my wealth. Asterisk, the gallery went silent. Victoria's hands shook. Nathan stared at the floor. Reed scrambled, producing more emails, claiming I'd threatened Edward with new revelations. Lisa displayed the originals, showing they were about baseball games and coffee meetups. Michael wasn't threatening, she said. He was supporting a friend. Judge Kim compared the emails, his expression darkening. Mr. Reed, did you submit fabricated evidence? Reed stammered. We received those from. That's not what I asked. Victoria stood, her voice shrill. He's a traitor. He destroyed our family's company and now he's stealing our legacy. He's nothing. The courtroom froze. He's a nobody who tricked Edward into thinking he cared. Mrs. Langston, Judge Kim said, his voice like steel, sit down or I'll hold you in contempt. Victoria kept going, tears streaming. You're all blind. He's a con artist. The bailiff moved toward her. Nathan pulled her down, whispering urgently. Judge Kim turned to Lisa. More evidence? Yes, Your Honor, Lisa said. We'd like to call Dr. Alan Weiss, Edward's oncologist. Dr. Weiss, a calm man in his 50s, testified that Edward was lucid when he revised his will. He scored perfectly on cognitive tests, he said. He told me he wanted to reward Michael for his integrity. Reed had no counter-evidence. Judge Kim looked at Victoria and her kids. I've seen many cases driven by greed, he said. Edward Langston was of sound mind. His voicemail, medical records, and Michael's consistent presence prove his intentions. He turned to me. Mr. Torres, you earned Edward's trust through courage. You didn't blackmail him, you honored him. He picked up his gavel. The will stands. The plaintiff's challenge is dismissed. Victoria, Olivia, and Nathan Langston will pay Michael's legal fees of $50,000 for a frivolous lawsuit. The courtroom erupted. Colleagues shook my hand. Reporters rushed out. Victoria sat stunned, her face pale. Olivia and Nathan didn't move. Outside, I saw Victoria by the elevator alone. Victoria, I said. She turned, her makeup smeared. What? I'm sorry it came to this, I said. I just wanted to honor Edward. You stole everything, she whispered. No, I said. Edward gave it to me. That's different. You're no family of ours, she said, her voice breaking. I know, I replied. Edward was my family. I walked away feeling free. The media shifted overnight. Headlines read, Whistleblower wins tycoon's legacy. The New York Times quoted Dr. Weiss and Rachel, who called me the son Edward chose. Online comments changed. Asterisk, he did the right thing twice. Asterisk, one message from a stranger read, your story gives me courage to speak up at my job. I changed my number and moved to a new apartment in Brooklyn. I heard Victoria's charity lost donors and Nathan's fund tanked. Their Park Avenue world shrank. Reputation matters in New York. 3 months later, I met with Lisa and a financial advisor. I want to start a legal aid fund, I said. For whistleblowers to cover legal fees and job retraining. Call it the Edward Langston Fund. I endowed it with $6 million, enough to help hundreds. I bought a modest brownstone in Bed-Stuy with a small backyard for my parents to visit. The rest went into a trust for the fund. One evening I found an old email from Edward. You reminded me to be better, Michael. I smiled, knowing I'd done the same for him. 6 months later, I was living a life I'd never imagined. Working as a consultant, mentoring whistleblowers, even dating a kind journalist who admired my fight. I was happy not because of the money but because I'd proven my worth. Edward saw that. Now I did too. If you're fighting to do right, know this. You don't owe anyone your silence. You deserve peace. Fight for it. What would you have done in my place? Share below. Let's keep this going.